We were at the southern end of the Sloan Canyon Petroglyph Trail, um, going in, hoping to climb up to these high hills up here. Because had made a convincing, I had made a case that I'd convinced myself that hunting sites were located at the tops of gullies in these little hollow bullseye-like enclosures, which would be at the top of a game trail. I tried to draw pictures of those sites, and they ended up looking a lot like petroglyphs, especially when I added a little picture of a bighorn sheep there. So I came to the conclusion that some of these petroglyphs with squiggles on them might be maps of hunting sites. So I took a picture of one on the way in, and it had something next to it. It looked a little bit more like pictographic. It had the arch of a bighorn sheep horn, but I couldn't make out the bighorn sheep in there. And then we exhausted ourselves trying to get up there. We didn't get up there. It was a disappointment. But on the way out, I took another picture of another petroglyph there that I thought was nice, crisply made. This one shows a picture of a man with a bow at his feet. And that's all well and good. What was interesting was what happened when I started putting these two side by side, looking at the home, thinking maybe this is a picture of a map of a place. And then maybe, is there any possibility that this would be a map of the same place? I started looking at these items, these petroglyphs, and I started noticing there are some similarities here. And I think it's very much worth taking a look at them. So let's go. So let's go through this. Side by side, here they are, side by side. I noticed, first of all, these three circles seem to be similar in the two pictures. And then I noticed right above those three circles, a kind of a partial swastika or an S-shaped figure. And they're not identical, but there's some similarity there. And then I traced this out very carefully because, I mean, at the beginning, you noticed the oval. You notice the oval here on the left side of the picture and the three circles at the right-hand side of the picture. So that leads you to look more and more carefully until you see, look at all of that. And gee, look at all of this that's lined up very similarly. I have to believe that those are two different pictures of the same thing. This is a petroglyph that represents something. And I'm believing it's a hunting site. That's why I was looking to see if these two were similar, because there's one big hunting site in the hills beyond these rocks, uphill to the south of them. Now, so there's a couple of comments that you can make, both about what you can conclude because of the similarity, and also what you can conclude because of differences in pictures. So, for example, this picture has the man with the bow, and these two vertical lines going down through there, which to me, especially since they're not present in the other pictures, suggests that these were used as grid lines, like the lines in one of those notebooks where you learned calligraphy. And the person who did this right-hand picture, or the persons, had it more carefully organized in their head than the person who made this picture over here. So you can conclude things based on the similarity of these pictures, but you can also conclude things based on their differences. Here's another thing. So, for example, this picture has this on it, and this picture has some vague things like that on it, and also, more specifically, the oval at the left here is kind of almost like in a detail here. I don't want to say what this looks like, sort of phallic, but with the bulge below and the thing elongated to the left, and something vague here, but more precisely another little circle there. And then this goes on. These might or might not be detailed. This might or might not, this yellow circle thing might or might not be a detail of what's done more crudely up above. And in this right-hand picture, there's also an additional feature. Now, I believe that these circles are those those dishes that are those enclosures where they would drive game up into. I believe that the reason you needed a map like this on a surface like this, where everybody could stand in front of the petroglyph and you could talk about, okay, well, let me interrupt myself. If you look at other YouTube videos about game drives, especially out west, they took place over long pieces of territory, and they involved larger groups of people. They might have had a social function, but in particular, they were organized around somebody was leading the thing, somebody was making a plan, other people were playing a role within that plan. And in order for a plan to be understood by a larger group of people, you kind of have to have a map if what's involved is you go stand in this spot and you go stand in that spot, or you move from here to there. A map would be essential. You couldn't really do a drive, a complex drive, certainly not in the hills over in the McCullough Mountains south of Sloan Canyon. You couldn't do that if you didn't have a clear picture of what everybody's role was, who was going to be where. So I think all of these are indirect evidence that these are maps of hunting sites. This is a map of a hunting site. The one on the right is a later version of the same map that's on the left. It was done by someone with a sort of, if you want a more organized mind than the one that was on the left. And if you look carefully at these surfaces of rock, it's clear that some of the scrape marks are fresher than others, and that there are older things that have either been worn out or maybe partially erased on purpose. And I think it's really a reasonable thing to see that there were people standing in front of this rock talking about how to conduct the hunt. This is more indirect evidence. It's up to me or someone to figure out if these lines are ridges or whether they're valleys or if I'm full of the brown stuff, and synchronize line this map. It's the same map to actual physical ridges and valleys and hunting targets as think I've seen from above Google Earth images of McCullough Mountains, especially the ones just south of where the Petroglyph Trail ends, right in there from the Hidden Valley parking lot or trailhead.